Yeah. There he goes.
Ready? Okay, we got 3:30. Let's go. Everybody turn their mics on.
On.
On, mine too. Okay, I'll offer a brief moment here. Lord, please watch over us, help us in these times, and especially help us to make the right decisions for the good citizens of this community. And keep everybody healthy as well. Thank you. Amen. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We don't have anybody signed up for comments. Does anybody wish to make a comment? Okay, Ken, I think we're going straight into you.
Okay. You know, we're going to do something a little bit different this board meeting, and we're wanting to highlight some of the better things that's going on within the utility and really highlight some of our folks. And I've been here for a short period of time, but Matthew Jones has been one coworker, friend, employee that really has helped me transition into my new responsibilities. And you just realize how much he does for the utility. From all the systems that's in place, AMI, his breadth of knowledge for the utility has been just great and outstanding and very impressive on, from my standpoint. And he kind of supports and assists the city as well. He's been with HBPW for 18 years. He serves as a senior information technology specialist. And so he was going to kind of walk everybody through the GIS system and the capabilities of that. It'll probably take about 5-10 minutes, but there's just been a whole lot of work that's been done on that, and it's being utilized by the police department, by our own services and systems. So just a really positive thing. And I also want to recognize Joe Darnell. He's the GIS technician, and so he's out there capturing all the data points and everything that's going on that's going to kind of build the system for the stormwater. So I was just going to have Matthew come up and present this information and give you guys a little bit of an insight to the technology and the system that's been in place, because there's been a whole lot of work that's went into this, and it just kind of allows us to even leverage off of some of the information that we have. Ultimately, we will be able to do some of our preventive maintenance and budgeting and timing of infrastructure. So anyway, but
Well, first of all, thank you both
Yeah.
fellows for your hard work.
They can't see that your shorts are.
Oh, with the lights off, you
and he's very astute with IT things and transitions well. And no, I'm just kidding.
Oh, no, we're good. Well, good afternoon. Before we get started, that memo that I had placed in the board packet, I didn't know if you had any questions about that. It was just a good historic overview of GIS and how we've used that, how it's been a benefit to us over the years, where we've kind of come from to where we are today to hopefully where we're going to go. But I had sent via email some information to you on how to gain access to the GIS platform with their credentials and that sort of thing, which takes you to this simple interface here. This is mainly what our crew uses to interact with on a daily basis. So they have mobility pieces in the field to allow them to connect and look at things. Joe handles all of our back-end editing, so when there are new meters set, new poles set, or changes made within any system whatsoever, Joe takes care of making sure that that's as accurate as we can possibly get that. Some of the things that we actually offer to other city entities, We've got some custom applications that we've developed for the fire department, the police department to use. We've also got some contracted interfaces that I'll just briefly touch on. And then our interface also allows us to just quickly gain access to some other resources that aren't necessarily a part of our GIS, but are useful when we're looking at other information related to parcels, easements, or even ownership for that matter. So jumping into, I've kind of broken these down by our different utilities. So the first one we're going to start with is electric. Doesn't look that impressive right here, but as we zoom down to particular areas, we're going to be able to see that everything is kind of broken down into various layers. And all of our maps are kind of designed to do this, to make it kind of easy to navigate, but also very similar. So if we're looking for water, same symbol, same sort of menu driven here. So it shows us all of our various features that we have to turn on, turn off, and sort of thing. Most of the time, our field workers know exactly where they're going. They wouldn't necessarily need to use the search tool all the time. But we've got this integrated into our NISC billing system that allows us to search for a particular billing address, and it takes us directly to that particular customer. So you probably, one of you probably recognizes that address right there. So it allows us to kind of zoom in, see exactly what's going on here. And we've got some other features that we can turn on inside of here, such as imagery. That always makes it a little easier to kind of understand. Very similar to what you can do like in your personal life through Google Earth, or maybe some navigations that you're doing from your personal phone. But this kind of gives us an idea of, this is exactly where this customer's meter is located. We're looking at some various symbols here on overhead lines, secondary going to various homes. Actually a little street light out here on pole 2150. And we've got some different attributes that we can click on. So information about a particular meter, information about a particular pole, all of that's readily available to our crews in the field, whether this be an electric related feature, whether it's water, whether it's sewer. So a lot of this information is, again, Joe continually updates. But it comes in really handy when they're out working on a particular system. Maybe they need to know what's on that particular pole, kind of know what that pole looks like. We've got pictures, attributes that are associated with that, kind of know what's hanging off of there. Just kind of helps us troubleshoot things in the field. And then if we look at some individual metering, we can get some breakdown information about that meter, about the serial number of the meter, the customer, if we need to contact that customer while we're in the field. All that information is readily available to our crew instead of having to call over the radio or call back to the office.
Did he pay his bill?
That I can't tell you from here. You'd probably find out if you didn't, though, via postal mail. So a lot of other attributes that we've got integrated in here as well, and I'll just touch on this in the electric, but it's also available in all of our other maps, is we actually partnered with Marion County to gain access to some of the information that they share and some of the information that is beneficial to us when we're looking for parcel owner, for instance. So if we were to click on a particular parcel here, we can see additional data about this. This is coming straight from the county. The benefit of being able to look at all this information is when the county actually makes their changes, daily, weekly, monthly, or how often they update, our data automatically refreshes. So it's not something that we're technically maintaining internal. We're just referencing that information out there. These are some of the features that we'll soon be providing to the city through a similar interface, but providing to the city to allow them to incorporate that data into their inspection, their property inspection mobile app that they're currently working on. Any questions so far? I'm going to turn some of that off there. So like I said, we can jump right over to water would be next. And again, very similar to features, different things that you can turn on and turn off. This was one area that Joe spent a significant amount of time trying to not only verify what was out there, but to make sure that it was as accurate as possible, because we never really had a good idea of what was out there until we did true field inspection, until we verified that with seasoned workers who were here that knew where everything was like the back of their hand, and to make sure that it was represented as accurate as possible. So I'm going to go through and turn on a couple more layers here to give you an idea on the water. Gives you an idea of where the water line's located there. This is very important when we're doing field locates. Obviously, if we're going to, this customer is going to be putting in a mailbox or using a backhoe, we really don't want them playing around our main, so we'll use this during the locate process. Again, represents the meter. We kind of have gone through the process of systematically placing the blue symbol, which would represent our meter, either on the home, meaning that it's an inside meter, or in the yard, just to kind of give our field crews an idea of where that meter is physically located and then where the shutoff is. We're currently in hydrant flushing season. So this would be the closest hydrant to that particular customer. And it just gives us some information. I guess I should, let me turn that on real quick. Gives us some additional information about that particular hydrant. This is some of the information that we're sharing out to the fire department in the event that they need to determine exactly which hydrant is best for them to use in the field. They can pull up this information, know as far as gallons per minute flow when the last time it was tested. Our crews are going through storing this information not only here, but we're also sharing that with the fire department for their ISO rating every year that they go through and submit.
Do you have an age that you can determine for the water lines? In other words, how old they are? Is there data?
They're old.
Yeah. Hopefully not here. But.
No. Kind of going by different areas of town, we have a general idea of where some of those are installed. The newer things that we're going through and making repairs and that sort of thing, we are updating an actual field in there. A lot of the historical stuff, we don't really have an idea. We can give it a best guess. But no, we have not really been tracking it by age. Moving forward, though, that's new information. So if new mains are collected, Joe's actually in the field, hopefully to get there before it's been backfilled and actually collect that pipe in the ground or where that valve is or any other infrastructure that they may have put in the ground before it gets covered up. Sewer was another network that Joe worked on extensively, not only collecting all the actual locations of each of those, but also a lot of detail inside the manhole, for instance, on upstream, downstream. We know the invert elevations. We've used that data for engineering flow modeling before, like I stated in that memo. So very critical information here. We've also taken the time to break down our entire sewer system into cleaning groups. We go through systematically however long it takes them to go through the entire system. They're choosing a particular cleaning group, cleaning it from upstream all the way to downstream, inspecting that where necessary, cleaning out any debris, finding any problems along that way during that inspection process, which has definitely cut down on any of the sewer overflows or claim calls that we've had. So again, that basically it's the same information, only broken down by sewer there. About 140 miles of sewer main, about 140 miles of water main, almost 11,000 poles, and I can't tell you how many miles of line off the top of my head. So there's a lot going on out there. Stormwater, big topic. We have gone through and collected as much data as we possibly can when time permits. Again, we're back in that same area, just kind of showing some of the infrastructure that's available out there. And this is an evolving document that, Joe finds new things or new issues or something that we haven't seen before, or any repairs that might be made or updated in this format. Some of the other features that we've been able to do are to integrate with some other inspection applications that we're using. One of those web-based applications is called Fulcrum, and we've been able to tie in some data that has been collected by field people that don't necessarily have GIS mapping knowledge, but it does a good job of allowing us from a GIS perspective to be able to look at all of these every year. So right now we're looking at creek crossings that have been historically inspected. And we do that just to make sure that that pipe is still covered, or make sure that there's not any sort of erosion going on that we may need to look at. But this allows non-GIS people to go out and collect information and then allow us to incorporate that into our GIS interface, just to be able to report, look at it, analyze it, review it, whatever we need to do with it from a more collective approach here. You're a quiet group, so we'll move on.
It's all very interesting stuff.
One of the custom tools that we've built and maintained for a long time, it allows us to do some statistical analysis, and I mentioned the sewer cleaning groups. Allows us to do some analysis on how much have we cleaned in a particular year, or where is this particular grid located. So I'm going to zoom down here to 131, for instance. And I'm going to clear that table. Kind of difficult to see in this particular view, but those mains are actually highlighted when they're in a particular grid. These right here kind of shows them upstream, downstream. Historically, the data that is collected in the field, Joe is taking the time to enter it in. So we know that the last time this sewer main segment was cleaned was on the 28th of January. They found no problems whatsoever. Shows you kind of which manhole they went to and from, the clean order, and approximately the footage length that they cleaned. Where this kind of comes in handy is we have the ability to search for some things. To do some reporting. And let's see here, we'll just go to the whole. And we're going to choose some cleaning criteria. Clear this. So this tells us the entire year of 2019, they cleaned 217 individual features and almost 39,000 feet during that cleaning schedule. Allows us to break that down by which year. And there's some various things that we can search for if they found broken tile or broken mains or grease issues in there, which seems to be pretty common, or any sort of stop-ups or issues. Those are also pinpointed on the map. So
Reoccurring stuff.
when going back to that area, they can look historically and see what may have been an issue in the past. That way they're not caught off guard or seeing anything out of the ordinary there, or things to pay attention to moving forward. So like I said, this is something that we use day in and day out. Every crew utilizes this. The locate crew uses this as best they can to locate assets in the field before any sort of construction goes on. But very valuable. Some of the things that we're looking to incorporate in the future is maybe allowing some additional types of editing, like some attribute editing if there are things that are not quite right in there, or if there's wrong comments associated with that, possibly allowing some of the crew to be able to edit and update that moving forward. Is there anything you want to add, Joe?
Good job.
Okay, thank you.
So with for example, if a tornado came through and we lost a corridor of poles, you could quickly determine how many were there and what to order and how to mobilize.
We would have the ability to do that. The nice thing about having this out in a cloud environment, we used to store this internal. And it was a little difficult of sharing information internal to the network out to the public. We actually store this in a private cloud now, so it would be easily accessible from like contractors if we were to have them bring them in and show them anything that's associated with the electric map. Most of them are kind of used to a GIS interface, so being able to search by an address or a location, and it's kind of intuitive. You click on something and find out exactly what's there, and and what you're looking for. But yeah, a lot of that information can be done. The tools that Joe uses day in and day out vary a great deal from this. Allows him to do some more statistical reporting and analysis compared to what I would call this as just a viewer.
If you would know the general area, you could be able to determine every single feature within inside that, and you can make lists or charts.
Make a spreadsheet out of that
Yeah.
quickly
Yep.
and start to order.
Any other questions? Going once.
How do the guys know, this may be for one of the sewer guys, but how do they know when to stop before getting into private sewer? Like if they're cleaning the line?
Like a private sewer main?
Well, no. If they're
Residential
cleaning,
and customer side.
if they're cleaning the city portion of the sewer and customer portions come off of that, how do they know when to stop? If we're on a dead end and the customers,
On the cleaning list, it tells them how many feet to clean.
feet.
And so once they approach that, they slow down or stop. And then if they go further than that, we'll televise and make sure the map's accurate, verified.
I was just curious because I got an old clay tile. It's been there a long time.
Yeah, within that sewer inspection camera equipment that they're using, it will actually show you how many footage or feet traveled. They'll also be able to determine when they go from manhole to manhole that they've gone that proper distance. But if it is a dead end, yeah, like Matt said, they are using this little footage gauge here.
Cool.
You know, one project that Matthew's heading up, you've heard a lot about automated metering infrastructure. And so we're kind of getting started on with it, which is going to be a great project, but you can actually have interfaces out here. So like on outages, you're going to know who's out, you're going to know when it's going to be restored. Prepaid metering or prepaid services would be something that you could offer your customers. Time of use rates, you're probably seeing a little bit of that being done on the Ameren system as they implement AMI. So there's just a lot of intelligence that once the AMI system gets in along with the GIS system that we can do, and actually creates a ton of value for the customers. I mean, it really does give them the ability to control their usage. So the next step would be able to create that value and allow the customers to really interact on a daily basis of how much they use or don't use. So we just want to take an opportunity to highlight the great job that Matthew does and Joe does, because it really touches everybody throughout the company, and rely on the information. It's critical that it's accurate, and they really work hard at it. So
One quick question about, I noticed we do quite a bit of tree trimming. Are we logging any of that activity in the GIS system? In other words, we've gone through that we have to go back on a regular cycle to work on? Do we do any of that?
Currently, we are not. We're going to start working with them on the Fulcrum and using the Fulcrum app, kind of like the creek crossing app. So we are, our linemen and others, we have sections and areas that we try to get done through a 5-year cycle. But we're not logging that in the GIS system. It's something that's on our radar.
Down the line. There's a lot of data there. I appreciate it. Good stuff.
kind of just transitioning into my general manager's report, the one thing I wanted to highlight initially was the Greenbelt Express project. It's actually an update for the board, and it was one of those items that was heavily debated during the legislative process. It's a 600 kilovolt transmission line that's going to run about 800 miles long. And the whole intent is actually to get renewable energy from southwest Kansas, across all the way to Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Jersey interface or transmission system. And probably in 2017, Hannibal entered into an option to acquire about 15 megawatts of the energy, and probably going to be a really good thing for the customers. Right now, back in that period of time when the decision was made, they thought the prices would run anywhere from $20 a megawatt hour to almost $30 a megawatt hour over the life of the contract. And the one thing we've been kind of talking about the last couple of months was power supply cost and really how the transmission constraints is allowing our customers to benefit from lower cost energy. And this is one of those lines that would actually fix that, where that energy would actually get distributed to the areas where the demand is being generated from. And so when you compare what we're paying around $60 a megawatt hour to to the $29, $30 a megawatt hour. That's a really good thing. It's in the early stages, but I wanted to let you know because the one thing that was referenced in some of the press releases was Hannibal's commitment within that line. And we're actually working through Missouri Joint Municipal Electric Utility Commission to acquire that and have that option. So project is still a long ways from really coming to fruition. But the eminent domain legislation was really not passed, so the project is still in the pipeline to come about. The other thing we were wanting to highlight is some financial assistance for our customers that may be available through the CARES Act, and the board has the information in their packet. And the money is actually going to be distributed between Marion and Rawls County, so we'll be working with them to see if we can't secure some financial assistance for the utility customers. The customer would actually have to be impacted directly by COVID and verify that. There's a few options that you can utilize, but most likely it would go through NECAC. Not for sure we'd be able to secure any of it. The board got a little bit of information on what our delinquent counts are looking like, and probably if you compare year over year, maybe $72,000, $73,000 of delinquencies may be attributable to COVID and the impact of the economy. So we'll be doing some more analysis on that and working, like I said, with Marion and Rawls and see if we cannot secure some of those dollars and work through those agencies to get them distributed to our customers. The one thing that we have going on right now is Rawls County Electric contacted us, and they're providing broadband, and so we'll be working with them a little bit, maybe on a pole attachment agreement at some point in the future. You know, within the electric system, we're still seeing some real positive signs and prices, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the financial report. But compared to last year, you know, where we were paying about $61 per megawatt hour for power supply, it's down to about $58.19 for this year, and that includes Prairie States, MISO, all the market purchases, and that's fully delivered to the Hannibal node and to our system. The other thing you'll see in there is locational marginal pricing through the MISO, and that's the day-ahead pricing that we're seeing. It's probably something that we may have somebody come in and present to the board because it's such a critical component of the electric system. But we're still seeing year-over-year changes going down about 22% for an average of $21.30 just for the energy itself. That's not delivered by any means. And overall, within the electric system, we did have a few more outages, but the availability rate and reliability rate is still outstanding. The system performed well. And really through April, May, with the high winds of some of the storms, it's really done an outstanding job. So a lot of people, you know, Jared's with us today, but a lot of people deserve a lot of credit. Kind of goes back to the tree trimming question that they do and the aggressiveness that they're doing out there, keeping those lines cleared. On the water treatment supply side of things, we're still seeing some consistency on the average day treatment. You know, Matt's going to be up here talking a little bit about the GAC project and his operations report, but everything's going extremely well on the water treatment side of things. We're seeing the average day pumpage around 3.1 to 3.2 million gallons per day. On the wastewater treatment plant, we're seeing about 5.6 to 5.9 million gallons of water treated, you know, each day, and actually saw a little bit more treated capacity in May over April from about 182 million gallons to 167. One project that I really like to highlight a few folks on and how it worked extremely well. We did have an 18-inch wastewater line that failed on Warren Barrett, and really the wastewater folks and the water folks worked together to get that line restored. And then even Andy and his folks went out there, so it's kind of wrapped up and repaired, and the paving's already back in place. It's a temporary patch with permanent work, but just a large repair. About 39 feet of 18-inch main was replaced during that failure. The one thing we're still, you know, Matthew hit a little bit on is stormwater funding requirements. A lot of work's going on it, looking at ordinances and statutes and some of the things that's been in the past that's been put in place. We're developing kind of a list of projects with estimated cost. Going to be working with the street department on that, but we're going to put a project of list together If you remember back in the budgeting process, we set aside about $1.5 million to start funding some of these repairs. If you look at Union Street and North Street alone, if we're able to secure grant funding, we're still going to have about a 20% match, which would be about $1.4 million that would have to be provided by local sources and HBPW. In the report, we talked about the temporary pumps being turned off. They are now turned back on because of the river levels. But even as we're going through working on the pumps and the replacement of those, the temporary pump system is still working extremely well. And I think the last thing I was just going to update is that, I'll be doing the finance report here in a little bit. The Director of Finance position is open. Abe is still working for us on a part-time basis, and that's greatly appreciated, putting the financial statements together. The posting will come down June 20th, and we'll see what kind of applicants we have, but we're going to move rather quickly and get that position filled as quickly as possible.
Very good.
So those are the items I have before Matt comes up and presents the operations side of things. Any questions for me? Or?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Matt?
Good afternoon. Just to update you on a GAC project. The contractor's working on some punch list items. They're working on some ventilation, mainly in the hypochlorite room first, so that we can get that system up and going, because there's some temporary equipment located up there that we need to move in order to finish out some of the items as part of the original project. They're anticipating being totally done with the project around the 1st of August. So far water's coming out of there pretty good. We're doing some controls testing that we've seen some mixed results with. If we had engineers up here a couple times with the controls people trying to check out the sequence of events, especially as it relates to the backwashing of the gravity filters with the new transfer pump. So right now it's just a backup backwash system, but that's something that was included as part of the original project, because eventually we're going to need to take the backwash tank down for some maintenance, and so we need to have that ability during that time. So also talk about a change order later in the meeting. In regards to die maker's tank, the contractor showed up on site today. They had a break in their schedule to where they could get up here and thought they could get the tank done. There's a 60-day time frame at which they got to complete the tank. Right now, what we're waiting on is the temporary storage. Having issue getting it right now, but we're working through that with the supplier on that. And right now, it doesn't seem to be holding up the contractor. There's a couple weeks worth of work that they can do without this temporary storage being available. And so hopefully the weather's good and get the tank painted. So on the sewer side of things, as Ken alluded to in his report, we are seeing more water being treated at the wastewater plant than what we're putting out to the customers. Part of that is not all of our water customers are sewer customers. We have some sewer customers that are on Rawls County water as well. So, but a lot of that relates back to I&I and river level. As we see the river level increase, we get more water coming into the plant. We have a big rain. We see a big spike in water. So we're working with plant personnel and a couple of these projects. The downtown SSO elimination project is one of them. The Patchen Street I&I project's another. We're trying to identify these sources of I&I and either rehab pipe, looking at replacement, looking at manhole replacement. We've got some manholes, especially in this Patchen Street area, that are laid up rock manholes. And so if you go down there after a period of heavy rain, you just see the water pouring through the side of the manhole. They're not of a regular shape to where we can really rehab them well. We're looking about maybe this fall, once the cleaning schedule kind of slows down due to temperature, being able to get out there and replace some of these manholes and especially the low-lying areas along the creek to hopefully seal out some of the I&I getting in. Stormwater side of things, the utility development, the fee development's kind of on hold until we determine a path at which we want to move forward. Don't see a need in spending a lot of time on the development of a fee until we determine how we're going to move forward and what that looks like. And then North Street, we had the contractor lined up to do the temporary repair starting today, but due to the river levels, that can't happen. We need to have the river down around 12 feet. We could probably get in there and get it done. So hopefully maybe toward the end of the month, provided we have no more large rain events like we had the last couple of weeks, especially north of us, that we'll be able to get in there, get that repair knocked out.
Matt, with the festival downtown over the 4th, is that site secured enough to keep?
Yeah,
There'll be a lot of people in that area with mud volleyball and all of that.
Yeah, that site was fenced off prior to last year's events with the chain link fencing panels. But we'll go down and make sure all the panels are secure and whatnot. There was signage and stuff hung all over it last year and whatnot. Ideally, we'd get in there and make the repair before those festivals and events takes place, but we'll see how the river level affects us on that. So, but we are continuing to work with the Corps of Engineers. There's a portion of repair that they're going to do. It's looking like they're going to repair the section between basically the toe of the levee and the east side of the alleyway. That they're going to repair that stormwater or storm sewer, and then we're also working with FEMA to determine which port or how much they will repair or replace, and ultimately that goes against that total project cost of roughly $5.5 million that we anticipate the whole project costing. So, and then lastly, I've been working with the engineers at BHMG on the Oakwood to South Side tie line. They were up here a couple weeks ago and drove a route we think lends itself well to installation of that new electrical line. Part of it is there's presently no lines there. Part of it is rebuild of existing stuff in addition to this new. And so Jared will be meeting with them, I believe this Thursday, to go over some finer points and some areas where there may be some conflicts and get those worked out so we can move forward with that. So
The stormwater regulations, I was trying to think, is that October we're supposed to get those, the new ones?
October of 2021.
Okay, 2021.
Yeah, DNR held listening sessions on those this spring. They were hoping sometime in June to get out a revised draft for public comment, but we haven't seen anything on that at this point.
That's actually one of the things we're going to do next month. Matt and I were kind of visiting about it, going ahead and giving you guys an update on the MS4 permit requirements and everything that's coming about October 2021 for the stormwater system, and just kind of start getting you aware of where we stand on those items.
Sure.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ken, you're doing the financial?
I am. I'm doing the financials, so just bear with me a little bit.
We will.
But, I think the first thing I do want to highlight is that when you look at the financial data year over year, really the overall revenues are down about 3.3%, but you got to look at that the overall average bill is down about 3.3%. So electric's running, about $1.3 million below their revenues from a year ago. But their expenses are down about $1.3 million from a year ago. So operating income is being steady year over year for the electric system. Water fund's seeing the same thing, where revenues are actually up in the water system by $248,000, and then matching the expenses, with an increase of about $186,000. So when you look at operating income or net income of $1.1 million, that's kind of where both systems are. That's where both years are running. And then sewer fund is down about $319,000. So we're probably seeing more of an impact there just because expenses are up a little bit more than what the revenues are down. But overall, revenues for all funds are down about 3.3%. Expenses are down about 1%, which equates into an operating income reduction of about 8%, but given the circumstances and the pandemic, all real positive things. So when you compare it to budget, the entire operation is running under budget on revenues, but we're actually running more on expenditures. So when you compare net income to what was budgeted of $2.5 million, net income for all funds are running around $3.2 million. And then if you kind of take into consideration total cash requirements, cash funding's up about $140,000 from last month and $2.8 million from a year ago. And some of these indications are why we kind of adjust some projects next year and postpone the 3.5% water rate increase. But really financially, everything's looking solid and kind of comparing well to the budget. And as I was indicating in the general manager's report, when you look at your aging accounts, really, we're looking at about accounts that's 90 days behind of about $78,000 this year compared to $65,000 last year. So as we've talked for the last couple of months, usually your utility bill is a lagging indicator, but everything's trending pretty well. So like I said, hopefully we can get on the other side of the COVID situation. And really, this is 11 months into this fiscal year, so we got one more month to go, and but everything's looking on target. So be happy to answer any questions on the financial side of things. The entire financial package is in your board report. So,
Ken, with the delinquent accounts, is that mainly accounting for electric, or one account might have electric, water, sewer? Do you count a delinquent?
Really, it's all looked at together. And then when somebody's delinquent, I think it literally goes electric, water, sewer. So if you're behind, your electric bill gets paid first, then your water bill, and then your sewer bill is how that's handled. So, matter of fact, I probably was remiss in not talking about customer service and the operational changes we're making. I meant to do that during the report. But as of today, we are opening the lobby back up. We're asking customers to make appointments so we can keep the social distancing and minimize the number of people that can be in the lobby at one time. We're kind of limited to 5 folks. Also today, with the governor's announcement, late fees would start accruing again. They have been suspended since March 17th. And then we're going to kind of directly communicate with the customers that may be impacted by disconnects. And we will not be doing any disconnects until after July 15th. So trying to communicate and work with the folks. And if they call and let us know, we'll be more than happy to kind of set up payment arrangements. But that's kind of the timing. We had about 10 people come in today, so it hasn't been a huge volume, but it's working well. So they're coming in, making a phone call, and we've put up some safety barriers for the customer service representatives, so everything on that front's going well.
Good.
And that wraps up all of our reports. So,
Anybody have any more questions on the financial?
Yeah, you're talking about the purchase power dollars being lower.
Mm-hmm.
Is that due to lower usage or better price per watt?
Really, it's literally a supply and demand type environment. With the COVID situation in the spring months, you'd had a lot more power stations going into outages, getting ready for the summer months. With the adjustments that they made on a personnel side of things, most units weren't taken down, so there was a lot of supply into the market. And then with demand being down overall, with some of the things that industrial and commercial customers have done within the regions, you just didn't quite see as many transmission constraints at points. So the cheaper energy was flowing more freely, and so you had the lowest supplies matching up with the demand. So it was a little bit of both. I hope I explained that well, but you just didn't have the transmission constraints because you just didn't have as much load, and then you had more supply into the marketplace. So that allowed the lowest cost units to be online and meeting most of the demands throughout the region. And you were seeing that in the SPP region as well as the MISO region. So,
I don't see our Spartan friend here, but do you know, are they back up and running, Spartan Light Metals?
You know, I don't know. I know they were planned. Does anybody?
I don't think so, not yet. I know that they had a plan. It's more, industry driven, so whenever they call for parts, then they're gonna start getting something together. I haven't spoken to Aaron for 3 weeks now. Maybe I should
Okay.
find out when his plans. He told me he was giving me a call, but I haven't received it.
Well, if there's plants don't need any parts, then, and some of them are still down, obviously, so,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, I was just curious, thank you.
I've just got a couple quick questions about, under the account register, and it's really my education more than anything. As I mentioned before about trees, I noticed a couple of invoices in there significant. I mean, we're doing good things getting the trees trimmed back. Do we do that all year long, or is that a winter activity, spring kind of activity? How do we?
All year long.
It is all year? Okay. That's why I ask about the GIS locating, who's controlling that. The other one is really just an accounting thing. It's the interdepartmental bill. Is that, I don't understand how that works, the balancing between departments. Is that what it is?
It is.
Just
I mean,
who does what work and that kind of thing?
really ideally, you'd like for each system, you're going to consolidate resources and allocate them across. And so each system kind of gets charged back for the services that they use from the other.
Employee utilization. Okay.
And then some of the things like common functions would get distributed across each of the systems as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I noticed that we came up with WebEx and now we're using Microsoft Teams.
We're gonna get to that point, yes.
Oh.
Haven't got that fully deployed yet.
Okay.
But we are moving in that direction, just in the event that we need to either collaborate or share information or meet remotely as well.
I don't know if there might be a plan to have customers who might want to not walk in here, click on a WebEx one-to-one customer service meeting to get some business done, or maybe feel like they're talking to an actual humanoid instead of.
I'm actually looking at taking Teams and integrating that with a simple chat feature on our website.
Oh, that'd be
to start
great.
out with.
That would be sweet.
There is a very low-cost add-in that we can put on the website that will allow someone from the outside to communicate with anyone who is online or in front of their computer in the front office during a set time. Right now, I've got about 17 more machines to deploy Teams on and then go through initial training, but that is on the radar.
Good idea.
So is Teams built into the license price?
Teams is actually built into the license price for each of our users. So for you, you have a stripped-down version of a Microsoft license, which includes an email as well as Teams. And then for the rest of us, it also includes mobile applications, Word, Excel, that sort of thing, not only for the mobile device, but also for their desktop environment. So yeah, Teams actually was, because of the whole COVID response, Microsoft responded, which I think has been one of their smartest moves in a long time, is to allow people to add Teams for just $1 per user per month, with all of those features that are integrated inside of there, for sharing information or collaborating or online meetings. Teams even has allows for phone calls to be made now through a Teams environment.
Well, we do video conferencing with Teams. We just switched over where I'm at. And that's why I thought it might be interesting to have a video integration to people who are wanting to video chat.
Yeah, it would really only take adding a simple camera and a microphone at each of our customer service representatives' computers to make that happen. But we can definitely look into that as well.
I don't know how it would actually benefit. Maybe just people would feel a little bit better. They could see somebody they're talking to and not have to get out. Then again, people who can't usually get out aren't ready and willing with their camera and their microphone, so.
Right.
That's
Something
nice.
to consider, though.
Yeah. Another thing that I wanted to find out what kind of stuff you're planning on, and I know that you talked about reaching out to delinquent accounts. Between the funding, the name that you mentioned that would probably end up going through NECAC and NECAC's LIHEAP program that they have available to anybody who wants to walk up there, it might be worthwhile having whoever's gonna handle that in customer service, sit down with NECAC for a little while and find out what NECAC needs, what the qualifications are, so that getting that bill paid might be a little bit easier if your customer service people understood what the LIHEAP requirements were and the application process, so that they would feel like they're dealing with BPW helping them as opposed to NECAC helping them.
Okay.
The NECAC application is a little bit it's super simple, and it's handled by people physically handing it through the window. But if our customer service people knew the details of who to call, what they need to bring, what their hours are of operation, that might make that a little more seamless. And get those delinquencies paid is really what the goal is.
Yeah, I mean, you really want to be able to provide assistance to your customers that's dealing and are impacted directly by COVID. And really on that, with the CARES program, it's kind of in the early stages. I think you guys saw the article where Marion County got $3 million or so that they'll be prioritizing and releasing. So I just wanted to keep that in perspective. We're not for sure exactly how successful we would be, but based upon the awareness we've gotten, it's something that we'll definitely research and follow up on. And I think Ross County got a little over $1 million that they would be working through. And, Corey sends his regrets, but actually I think Corey was one of the ones that was identified that's going to be helping, determine the selection criteria and the evaluation criteria, because there'll be a lot of people committing. There'll be some needs out there, that's not just for utility assistance, but other things that entities have been impacted by the COVID. So I just thought it was positive, and like I said, we're going to kind of see if we can interact and see if we can get some funding. And then most of the grant dollars have been recommended to go through your action centers or your action agencies to help on that. So we'll be learning as much as we can.
But it's going to be a culture shock for people who haven't had a late fee or had their stuff disconnected and they haven't paid for 3 months. They're going to be far, far behind. So anyway, you're on top of it, sounds like.
Okay, anything else? Matt, I believe you're up.
Talked about the GAC project at the water plant earlier. What I'm here to seek approval for is change order number 2. It's a lot of light reading. It's about 150 pages. It covers 17 changes that were made to the scope of the project. Overall, the highlights, it decreases the total project cost by $4,455 and extends the final completion date by 130 days, or extends it out to August 15th. These were 17 smaller items that we worked with the contractor with during construction. Some of them were operator driven, some of them were constructability driven. And so we took some, we gave some, and this is the net of that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Or
You don't want to go through all the pages that are.
I can if you want.
No.
You get tired of hearing me talk, I guarantee.
I think he already has gone through.
Thank you.
So it's my understanding that we're reducing it $4,455. And you need somebody to make a motion and that be approved, correct?
That is correct.
We hear a motion.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
So approved. Thank you, Matt. Ken, you're back up.
I am. The next item we had, we've actually, over the last 30, 60 days, started looking at some equipment and just kind of going through the process to identify if some things needed to be surplused. And we've identified 4 PCs that we have actually, through the surplusing process, I just think it's a good thing to offer it to the city or any other agency that may be able to utilize it. So we have declared these items for surplus. Matthew has a replacement program of 3 or 4 years on all of his technology equipment. The police department can utilize this equipment for their own use. And so really, in some ways, we're not even surplusing it, but it will go off our books and onto the police department's books. So we wanted to bring it to the board for approval, just really positive all the way around and kind of sticking to our programs. And, over the next month or two, we'll have some other items that we'll have the areas look at to see if it's necessary to go ahead and surplus it. But this was the first one, so we wanted to make sure we brought it to the board, and then that's probably going to be our standard operating procedure to see if it can be utilized, somewhere else.
Yeah, within our own city, that's a
within-
great idea, yeah.
So anyway, but that's what's before you, and it's been outlined there. So if you have any questions, be happy to answer them.
Does anybody have any questions? We need a motion for that.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is passed. Thank you, Matt. Ken? Okay, James, you're up.
I have no comments.
No comments today. How is, what's his name?
Drew?
Drew, how's Drew doing now?
Well, as far as I know, he's doing fine. We haven't seen him. He's actually gone on down to Kansas City, although they're still trying to get their house sold.
Right, okay. I don't know if they'd sold their house or not. But,
They last I had heard, that was still listed. So
so how are you holding up?
fine. I've got a new associate. I was going to bring him today, but he's buying a house, so he had to go and do some things along those lines. So
Okay, good deal.
so hopefully he'll get me caught up.
Okay, very good. Thank you, James. Any general discussion? Nope, I'm not hearing anything. I do have one. I was reached out to by one individual after our time change thing. Has anybody else heard any negative feedback or comments on the time change? Not our meeting time?
No.
Yep. Okay. We'll table that for now. Okay, Bill.
Motion to go into closed session pursuant to Section 610 of the Missouri Sunshine Law. The meeting shall convene in a closed session to discuss real estate and contracts.
Second.
You need to say who you're going to take in. Admitting the board, the manager, and me, probably.
And I'd like for Matt and Jared to stay as well. So
As listed.
Yep.
Add them to the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Yeah, thank you.